Let's see what we have in here. So I bought a new set of headphones just for when I am on the plane. So usually when I get on the plane, I kind of like it when it's pretty quiet to drown out the airplane noise. So let's see what this is. This is just the simple, the Quiet Comfort 25, Bose Quiet Comfort 25. I kind of like this, I think. So I'm gonna try this out. I've had an older pairs before. They seem to work really well, and it's just that those have worn out. So let's take a look what we have in the box itself. Pretty nice. Quick instruction cut. Simple explanation for setting up. And let me get the box. Look at that. That looks really awesome. Documents. Is there any documentation on how to use these things? What do you guys do with these documentations? Do you throw away all the boxes and things like that, including the documentation? So this one's pretty unique, I think. Well, it's almost like a couple of pages, and usually I think they have like multiple languages in here. My old eyes, if only I can see. Yeah, multiple different languages. Look at that. Whoa, lot of pages in here. But still, I think, considering anything else with multiple languages, it is just still one pages. I guess pretty simple for a product like this. It makes sense. What about other documentations? So for a Samsung portable hard drive, the documentation is pretty simple. Again, tells you the specifications, how to use the Samsung portable drive. There's some cautions, and then there's a different language on there. Again, a couple pages in here. What do you guys do? I don't know what to do with these things. Even for a charger, single page, right? All the different things. You got single pages. You got multiple pages in this. This is for a Power Hub, File Hub, RAV Power File Hub wireless router. If only I can read. It's got multiple pages. It's pretty nice. It's got, I would say graphics in here. Tells you what they do. Instructions all the way through. This is all in English. Yep, this is all in English. So what do you guys do with documentation? Do you throw it away? Do you keep it? So why are we talking about documentation in this episode? Well, guess what? This is a follow-up to the previous episode. Some of you may have guessed this. And the second value for the Agile Manifesto is working software over comprehensive documentation. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is that, wait a minute, whoa, let's look and see what comprehensive documentation means. So comprehensive means in detail, in a lot of details, right? So the Agile Manifesto, in Agile, we're not trying to say don't do any documentation. So that's number one. If you have anybody telling you that in Agile there is no documentation, then that is wrong. That is not the right thing. There is still value in documentation, just as in some of the products that we bought today. Some of it may be 1 or 2 pages, some of it a couple more pages, and some of it has stuff that is required for FCC, Federal Communication Commission statements and things like that they have to provide out. Now, this is minimum viable, right? Not a lot of pages, simple stuff. Yes, these are simple products to use, but think about this. If you have to provide a comprehensive documentation, how much it's going to cost in terms of shipping and how much stuff that you have in here. So we only need just enough, right? Just enough things for the users to need it. Now, do I need this documentation? I'll probably throw away most of my documentation, and when I need it, I'll probably go online. Now, the nice things about today's tools is that documentation, oftentimes it is hard to keep up with new changes, especially in software. So what do you do with those things, right? So comprehensive documentation back in the days for me is, I remember when I was in college, having to do my first COBOL project, and part of that was delivering documentation. I had to do the every screenshots, every diagram, I have to do database design, show all the database design, show all the coding, and all those things in there. And what I deliver to my professor was basically the software. And back in the day, it was a small diskette, a 3.5-inch floppy disk, and 4 manuals about this thick. And when I first handed it to him, he was like, "Whoa, what is this?" Because there's 4 manuals. And all it was a real simple application written in COBOL to store context. That's all it was. So the goal in that exercise, especially in college, for example, yes, we are to produce all this documentation, we are to produce all this software. Now, when you think about the users that you are catering for, are they looking for the documentation, or are they looking for a working software? So what we want here is working software. People are not paying us for documentation. So ideally, I want to have my working software, which makes it a way lot better. And in this instance, if I have a product that works, I really don't care about documentation until or unless something happened. Now, when something happened, then I'll probably pull out my booklets and say, well, is there anything in there that helps me troubleshoot? If not, I go online. One of the nice things, like I mentioned before, with capabilities of online, we can have updated documentation. When I deliver my software and documentation back in the days to my professor, if I had made something wrong in the software, guess what? I now have to reprint it, right? And it takes a lot of time to print those things back in the days, especially when you're using an Okinata 24 dot matrix printer, and it sounds like all day long. So the idea here is that while documentation is still needed, that is not the biggest key. The biggest key is working software. So assess in terms of what you are delivering. Now, oftentimes we see people asking for documentation, and the answer is why. Why do you need this document? Who is going to consume this document? I would say go as far as the same way as how we assess a user story, right? The who, the what, and the why. Who really wants it? What do they want to do with it? And why? Why do they want the documentation? And that allows us to, in my mind, get us to the right meat of it as to truly do we need it or not. So hopefully this gives you guys a tip. Whenever you have somebody asking you for the documentation, who wants it, especially the users, how they're going to use it, why they want to use it. So think about that, and that may get you away from having to create all these massive documents. Okay. Now, one of the biggest drawback oftentimes is in a audit environment, when you have a lot of people say, hey, I need it for audits X, Y, and Z and things like that. Then if that's your environment, you may not have a choice but to provide it. Now, how much of it is required? So look into that. Now, if I have a testers and all they spend all day long is writing documents, that's probably not a good time, right? We want to spend time, especially for a tester, in testing, not in writing documents. So free them out. So in that instance, you may want to have a person on your team that does nothing but write documents, if that's what it takes. So thank you for watching. If this makes sense, do some comments. If it does not, make some comments. Either way, give me some feedback. Hope to see you all next. Bye.